103.1 KSCW. I'm Keith Breitbach, and this is Community Chat. Today, we're joined by Arizona and Sun City West author Genevieve Marshall, whose new novel, Blank Checks, asks a simple but revealing question. If you could write yourself a check for any amount, what would you choose and why? The story follows several people around the world whose lives are changed by that very question. Genevieve, welcome to Community Chat.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
When I was reading, I felt it's not really about money so much. It's about what you would change if you had the opportunity, if you could write that check.
Exactly.
Yeah. So tell us, give us a kind of that elevator pitch of this novel that you've written.
Well, the question alone, just how much would you write on a blank check, really just creates this excitement that just wells up in people of that what if moment. What if I really had that opportunity to have a blank check, and what would I do with it? So a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact, here in Sun City West at the Lizard, we were gathered, a bunch of us, and we were sitting around talking about the possibility of if you were given a blank check, how much would you write on it, and what would you do with it? And so everybody started coming up with their list. Most of the list involved paying off debt, which was a big one. Another one was helping grandchildren, funding their future and their education. You have to remember, we live in a 55-plus community, so we're not helping our children anymore. We're helping grandchildren. And then the other things on the list came up with, that vacation. How I want to take that vacation, but I want to take it in style now. So after all of that was put on a list, we started tallying up the numbers, and everybody had a different number. So here's the interesting part, is after everybody had that number, 2 or 3 weeks later, people came up to me, the same people in the group, and they said, I want to change my number. Okay, why do you want to change your number? And they said, I can't stop thinking about how much I would write on that blank check and what I would do with it. And so now I've added items to my list, and that's where the excitement in me started really growing, because weeks later, people still could not stop thinking about their blank check.
So that's the genesis of the novel. When I go to a bookstore, sadly there aren't as many bookstores today as there used to be, but when I'd go to a bookstore, take a book off the shelf, read the first 10 pages, and if I kept wanting to read, that was generally a book I wanted to purchase. And with your book, I started reading. I think I got to page 60 or 70. I thought, wow, this is a great story. And you've done it. You've taken that seed, that genesis of the idea, and you've kind of developed this whole storyline. Tell us a little bit more about that. An app, a worldwide game people are playing, and you pretty much take people all around the planet, all around the globe with this novel.
I do. So basically, you have a mastermind who has created this mysterious app that appears randomly one day, and the world starts signing up for the app, not really knowing what to expect. And so on every month for 1 year, there's a random person that is chosen, and you get taken on this virtual online voyage, right, around the world, because it is random and it doesn't matter where the people are. If your phone is in, let's just say, Hong Kong or Australia, you're going to get notified. So it doesn't matter where you are. And it just takes the people on a voyage of, all of a sudden, it's not just this what if, it's you're now presented with this moment in time. And I take people through that wonderment of where are you in your life? What are your values? Because the value of money is so different around the world. Now, me being a world traveler, I have experienced so much of that where, you could travel and say my budget is $1,000. And for some people, you could take like many, many vacations on that. In other places, you could probably take a vacation for about a week. So I was trying to introduce the value of money and then people's dreams and aspirations. What is really interesting and of value for them? And so as the reader goes through the book, they start asking all these questions. So I had to come up with, okay, how would I introduce those answers? And so I came up with, I'm going to introduce a private detective who has his own issues in life, and he finds out about the app and starts thinking, I want to get into this and find out who who, what, where, and how is this occurring? Because it is so random. And so I introduce this private detective, and he starts delving into trying to figure out online, how is this happening?
There is a cinematic kind of quality to the storyline and the writing of this sort of mysterious figure who created this game and this app. And it kind of takes on this viral aspect to it. It's very contemporary in today's world as well, but you still touch on these very human stories. Can you share a little bit more about those characters that are affected by the game or that get to write the blank checks? Because there's some really interesting sort of narratives and backstories there as well.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting backdrop. So I really have not created a lot of these characters because a lot of these characters are real people in my life. And surprisingly enough, because we're in Sun City West, a lot of them are residents of Sun City West. They are my friends. And everybody, I believe, has a story. So if you sit and listen to people's stories of their real life, you can really get a sense of who they really are. And most people don't like talking about their life, but fortunately, I've been able to listen and people open up to me. And so some of my stories include people like Sherry Posner, who's my Zumba teacher, and she is Leah. She's the one that gets caught between the toilet and the bathroom and has to call the fireman. That was an actual real story that happened to her here in Sun City West. So I asked her if I could use that story. And so that's how Leah was created in that chapter. I have some other people here, Mary Ann and Ed Luton. And Ed is just this amazing person who has really, really inspired me in life. So he has leg braces because of a disease that he has. It's called the Charcot-Marie tooth disease, and it's because the nerves don't talk to the brain. And so things in the body don't quite work. But he's an inspiration because he's the first and last one on the dance floor. He plays golf every day. And he's just inspiring, right? And if you look at him, he's always happy. And yet you look at him and you go, you have pains and aches every day. He goes, it doesn't matter. I want to enjoy life. And so I take real people's stories, and then obviously with a lot of liberty, and the artistic flair, is throw in some spices here and there, change their story around, obviously change their names. And I just kind of ran with it. And so that's how I kind of came up with a lot of my figures, characters, places.
This is 103.1 KSCW. I'm Keith Breitbach. This is Community Chat. And in the studio today is Genevieve Marshall, author, Sun City West resident, and has written the book, the novel, Blank Checks. You've written a couple of other books also. Tell us a little bit about those. And it really touches on, you mentioned world traveling. You've apparently been here, there, and everywhere and back again.
I have. I've been very fortunate in life to have traveled around the world. I was born in the United States, but grew up in South America in my formative years, and then was very fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to go to Europe. And so a lot of that started my wanderlust of wanting to know more about the world and see the world. And I've really been pretty much a solo traveler my whole life. I like just kind of going and not really having to worry about other people or schedules. And so I pretty much just take off and go. So during the pandemic, we were not traveling, as we all know. And so I started virtual traveling. And through that, people started saying, you need to share your stories because they're very interesting, they're intriguing. You travel by yourself. We don't understand that. We would never do that. But you have some amazing tales to tell. And so what I did was I just wrote 2 books that are my memoirs. They're 11 standalone stories, and they're called Unexpected Adventures. And I just did that for family and friends and for me just to pass the time by until I could get back on the road again. And having done that, the first book was successful enough that everybody said, we know you have more stories, so you need to kind of jump into that. And with time on my hands, I actually did that. So my first book was published at the age of 60. Never thought I would ever write a book, be an author. And now here we are with book number 3 published and book number 4 in the works.
Aha. One of the things I really enjoyed, I enjoy traveling also, like so many other people, if not virtually, in person, obviously, and living vicariously through other people. Reading the novel, reading the stories in Blank Checks, you mentioned you get very specific. Having myself, I lived in San Francisco, so you mentioned a restaurant on Balboa Street. I looked it up to see, is that an actual restaurant? Yes, it is. The Richmond in the inner Richmond in San Francisco. And then I was looking at the island in Spain that you brought up and some of those types of things. Are these places that you've actually gone to, or did you find those virtually?
So a lot of them I have been to, but there are also a lot of places I have not been to. So I love creating trips in my mind, pretending, especially during the pandemic. I spent weeks and weeks and weeks in lockdown, just traveling every week. And so I would basically home in. So when I was writing the book, I put myself in these different locations. They were either locations that I had read in magazines or had been to myself or found very interesting, intriguing because of stories, such as the Japanese stories, with the Alzheimer's people going to the restaurant. And I know you haven't gotten that far yet, but there is that chapter where this Japanese man, in real life, back in, I think it was like 10 years ago, I could be mistaken with the time frame on that, but he walked into an assisted care living place, and he walked in there and ordered food, and they delivered him the wrong food. And he was looking around and he said, I'm not going to worry about this. I'm just going to go ahead and eat what they serve me. And he came up with this phenomenal idea of having Alzheimer's people in Japan be for one day, go to these restaurants and actually serve people. Everybody knows they're going to get the wrong meal. And the excitement is, what am I going to get, even though I've ordered something different? And so now it's engaging your community and getting these people to actually do something besides sit all day long. They're now serving, they're happy, you're getting the wrong meal, and everybody just has this wonderful time. So that is a big part of that story in Japan.
When it comes to the blank checks and the numbers that people say they want to write, what has surprised you the most?
Oh, wow. The most has been how much people want to do for others and not for themselves. And that's across the board. I don't care what age you are, even the youngsters these days. My daughter's family and even the kids, the grandchildren. It's like, wow, money is it's a personal thing, but they want to reach out and help others. And that's given me like a real warm fuzzy in my heart. Because, a lot of people, you would think, I want to go out and do for myself. And I have yet to meet that person.
There was one character who asked for too much.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the psychology or the thought process behind that character.
So the thought behind that is not everybody is that thoughtful in life. And, we've all met those kind of people or have had to deal with them. And so just to give a little bit of friction and to give that one little moment where people think that what's going to happen. And so I wanted people to not like this particular character and to be angry that they were going to get something more in their life and they really didn't deserve it. And then the excitement when I wrote that it didn't happen, it got me excited, but everybody else has told me, oh my gosh, yes, because she didn't deserve it. It's like, oh, okay. That worked.
And that's where it has all of these characters. It's almost like a Robert Altman film of some sorts, right? Where they all kind of tie together in this interesting, strange way with this worldwide global game, this app. Blank Checks, it's a book written by Sun City West author Genevieve Marshall. What a terrific read and a fun journey, not only through the human behavior and psychology, but across the globe. Genevieve, thank you so much for joining us on Community Chat and sharing your story.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me today.
This is 103.1 KSCW. I'm Keith Breitbach, and this is Community Chat. Thanks for listening.